Welcome to the Vantage HR Influencers Podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Vantage Circle.
We often talk about company culture like it's this one big unified thing. But the reality inside most organizations is way more nuanced. Sometimes what you feel in one team is completely different from what you would experience in another, even though they are technically part of the same company. And that's where the idea of microculture becomes really interesting and honestly really important. So, to dive into this, I am really excited because today we have with us Rashi Ramani, Head of Human Resources at Care Insurance. She's someone who has seen these dynamics play out firsthand. And I think her perspective on how microcultures form, evolve, and even sometimes turn toxic is going to be super insightful. So, let's start our conversation.
Absolutely, Sanjeevni. First of all, thanks to you and Vantage Circle for having me here. About my professional journey. I bring with me over 19 years of experience in human resources. I started my professional journey with a leading telecom giant before moving into the financial services space. And I'm one of the founding team members at Care Health Insurance. I have been here since 15 years, grown through the ranks, and now currently heading HR and people practices, which is across geographies in India. So it's been an incredible journey of building high performing teams, shaping culture with our podcast today.
Thank you for sharing your journey with us. Once again, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. With your permission, shall we dive into the topic of discussion today?
Absolutely, Sanjeev.
Great. So
let's begin.
Yeah, great. So when we say microculture, what are we actually talking about is my very first question. Because, people talk about this a lot. There's a lot of fuss about this as well. People are talking about it. And not everyone is on the same page when it comes to the meaning of this whole concept. So, what does microculture actually mean? And second of all, how is it affecting or how is it different from the broader organizational culture that everyone keeps talking about and something that is there on mission statements or onboarding slides? How is it different from that?
So, Salini, the moment I got this topic, and I was instantly curious to do this podcast. Since microculture culture is aptly relevant while to any segment or any business line, but it is all the more relevant to our business line. The way we are spread today, the way we have a diverse geographical spread with multiple location, multiple business lines, multiple partners, stakeholders, and the employees spread across the country into remote locations, into urban areas, rural areas. So microcultures within culture is absolutely relevant and of a lot of importance to understand in today's context. Now coming back to the question, within the broad organization culture, there are certain set of values, beliefs, the different kind of working style that each team develops within, which is nothing but a microculture. So every team has a specific way of interpreting and applying companies' values in day-to-day work. So there are a broader value system that the organization generally has, and around those values, then there are certain set of micro values each business line picks up and drives it. So, for instance, at Care Health Insurance, while our organization is rooted with a strong culture of performance and customer centricity, we recognize that different teams would have a different microculture, and they will have an absolutely different way of expressing it. For example, in our case, technology. Technology might prioritize agility and experimentation, while claims team might focus on speed, accuracy, while the larger objective remains around, driving a culture of performance and around customer centricity. But these are some of the microcultures each team would pick up and each team would drive. Hence, in from an overall perspective, microculture is a subset of a broader organization culture.
Okay. So now once we start noticing these cultural pockets, it really makes me wonder, how do they shape the way we interact on a daily basis? Because there will be a set of team who loves to interact and share ideas, while on the other hand, there might be certain teams who like to lean to the hierarchy, or prefer silence without anyone really noticing. They like to work not in silos maybe, but they prefer silence over, like, too much of sharing ideas, if I could say so. So how does microculture really influence the way individuals communicate on a daily basis?
Definitely influences the way a team interacts or communicates or collaborates on day-to-day basis. So it is very, very team specific. How we talk and work together on a everyday basis is shaped by our team's microculture. So it's like, unwritten guide for things, uh, and how so for instance, a team might would have the phone and talking and taking an update even on important issues, while the other team might would have a culture of sending an email and taking an update on everything, even the smallest of the things. So it's basically how the team and how the overall culture is being built in that particular team. The A thing might work for a particular team, a B thing might work. At the end of the day, it is about driving performance and driving the right cultures and the right behaviors in the team. So one of the important aspect also here is that how open are we with feedback, how we handle disagreements, and how we tackle problems as a team. So when our microculture encourages open conversation, you will definitely see free flow of ideas, which would spark new ideas, new solutions, newer way of thinking, etc. But if the microculture makes people hesitant to talk or hesitant to speak up or hesitant to come up with ideas, we might miss out on great ideas and some relevant feedback around.
Okay. I have this question in mind. I'm really very curious to discover this. Like, do these team cultures just naturally evolve based on who's in the room, or do leaders, really have a serious role to play in shaping these kind of cultures? I mean, is it all just organic dynamics, or is there a more intentional process at play when it comes to building or changing a microculture?
Hmm. So the the question last, sometimes you would see that it just happens very, very naturally, kind of growing on their own, based on who's in the team and what you're working through, what kind of dynamics are there. So it's a bit like a team's personality developing over time. Our leaders and managers needs to step in, and there has to be a gentle guide which drives the overall, the larger behaviors. While the natural growth is great, a little intentional shaping from leadership, showing the way, reinforcing good habits, and about talking about what's important to the team helps make sure our microcultures are productive and fit in the larger scheme of things and the larger picture. Like at Care Health Insurance, through our different rewards and recognition and training programs, we instill care values. We make sure that our values are spoken about. There are different set of mechanisms and platforms where we talk about our value systems, so that it becomes a part of their DNA. And those values then they display even if they have different working style or ideologies as part of their microculture.
Okay. You know, yes. So,
Which
one
is
microculture,
absolutely
yeah. So when microculture is done right, when it's actually properly in place, I'm sure people will feel more connected, more seen, and more valued. And it's pretty hard to not notice the shift in energy. People are more engaged. They'll go the extra mile. They'll go above and beyond. So here I'd like to understand, how does a microculture really impact the overall employee engagement, performance, as well as retention? What impact would it have in these three areas: employee engagement, performance, and retention? So what do you have to say about that, Rashi?
so. Microculture has a deeper impact on every team. So when it's engaged, the team performance is high. You would always see some behaviors or a culture within the team which instills a feeling of belongingness. We often see, when team members feel a sense of belongingness, when there is enough psychological safety, and if there is a shared purpose within the microculture, they are definitely more likely to be engaged. You would see the commitment level and the motivation level of such teams is always high. So a lot of times as a HR professional, this question is asked to me about the attrition rates, about what makes reasons how teams are retained in the company. So while there can be n number of reasons we talk about and come up with, but you would always see wherever there is high level of engagement, which would means wherever there is high level of belongingness in the team, the retention rates would always be higher. So we would often see that significantly help in boosting teams' performance. Even large task or a complex task at hand can be solved if there is a larger purpose in the team, if the team members are aligned to that purpose, which happens only through open set of communication. And employees are more likely to stay with an organization if they feel valued and connected within their immediate teams. So we would always see a positive micro culture which helps in reducing stress. There is enhanced job satisfaction, and then ultimately it creates a supportive environment where individuals thrive. So eventually, a strong microculture impacts engagement levels, performance, and retention rates.
Yeah, I agree. Like you've mentioned that when microculture is in place and when done right, I think it substantially reduces stress, uh, increases job satisfaction, and overall creates a supportive work environment. So these are going to be my three takeaways from your response. Now, moving on, we have talked about the good side of microculture in an organization, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be a flip side as well. Not all microcultures are healthy. Some can be a little toxic. There might be gatekeeping, passive aggression, you name it. There are going to be problems, I'm pretty sure. And what's tricky is that these patterns don't really show up in broader employee engagement. So, Rashi, my question is, how can leaders identify potential toxic microcultures within teams? And once they really identify it, what are the steps they need to take in order to, mitigate that?
Sure. So it's absolutely an important and a relevant question. Where within an environment there, we always see dysfunctional structures, dysfunctional cultures that definitely exist. These kind of structures, wherever exist, they don't just hurt the morale, but they directly impact the performance and retention and ultimately the environment of the organization. So while do on different parameters to understand the pulse at the micro level. We also have our leaders who are equipped with information to identify the red flags, which could be high attrition areas, which could be a dip in performance, or wherever there is too much of office grapevine, etc. One can also identify such areas by simply encouraging one-to-one chats with team members, which reveals a lot about what's really going on. So, the way we operate is our culture is very, very entrepreneurial. We give a lot of freedom to our teams, to our business leaders to drive their business in the way they would want to. With that, there is a lot of encouragement on the communication that happens. So with one-to-one chats, one-to-one communication, the team members, they get a lot of information and insight about what's really going on. So even, Sanjeevani, even in our personal front, I think most of the thing that makes us anxious are unspoken. So personally, professionally, it is very important to have a right conversation at the right time. At the end of the day, we all are humans. We all have our own anxieties and insecurity, the dysfunctional or a toxic environment. So from an organization perspective, I think it helps to realign the teams on shared values. It creates a rituals that builds trust and invest in middle managers who often are your culture carriers. So it also goes a long way when you start celebrating the culture wins, when you start recognizing people who are your culture carriers, who talk about your culture and set precedents in a way where the others can notice and others can learn from. So, it is very, very important to recognize and reward it also. So, at the end of the day, Rome was not built in a day. So, the same behaviors or cultures are not built overnight. It's something you actively build on every single day.
Yes, absolutely. There's one more thing that I'd like to ask you. You have mentioned rewarding and recognizing the culture carriers. So, how exactly do the HRs in the organization, all the leaders do it? How do they recognize and reward these people who create a great working environment for themselves and the people around?
Sure. So, as I've been talking about broader values and the culture, that a lot of areas we drive and recognize these value system through their behaviors. And we also have certain platforms where the business leaders can nominate these cultures and values and can recognize these folks. And at a broader level also, so annually we have certain rewards and platforms where we talk about our values and we recognize these employees who have demonstrated these values. So, from a perspective of overall stitching up, as I mentioned earlier, also, we talk a lot about our value system on different forums, and hence it is drilled down in the DNA of the system And therefore, the business leaders also in their day-to-day basis talk to their people about it. And wherever they are able to recognize such behaviors, there are different platforms where they can recognize them.
Yeah, interesting. That's a great take. Again, Rashi, I'm having a wonderful conversation with you. I'm really thoroughly enjoying it, and I'm sure our listeners are loving this too. So, we have reached the end of today's episode, but I cannot let you go without you giving me as well as listeners a final message. I'm sure our listeners would be delighted to hear it from you. Also, do let us know how we can reach out to you post this episode.
My profile is there. So anybody who wants to reach out to me can reach out to me on LinkedIn. And a message to everyone, I think, in today's changing landscape is that one thing to be consistent. I think consistency goes a long way, even in much more, even in, this is much more powerful than brilliance that comes and goes. So, somebody who's consistent, somebody who shows that behavior in whatever stage of career you are in, whichever field you are in, I think the most relevant would be to stay connected and consistent.
To stay consistent. I think it's a lovely message that you've given to our listeners. Rashi, thank you so much for joining in today. Thank you for giving us your time. It has been a sheer pleasure of ours to have you on the show. Thank you once again. Thanks a lot, Rashi.
Thanks for listening to the Vantage HR Influencers Podcast. Please do subscribe to Vantage HR Influencers Podcast YouTube channel for new episodes.